In February, a guy by the name of John Schwartz, who has a following on X, decided that he wanted to protest economic power by tweeting out or Xing out, I don't know how y'all want to describe it, but basically by reaching out to his community and saying, and this is a white man, by reaching out to
Welcome to Pegasus versus the World, where we take on challenges, comedy, trending topics, and some travel.
City boy, city boy.
All right, so this is a brother I follow. I like Anton. He has a lot of common sense, a lot of good principles, and he's a baller. And I always look up to folks that I respect. You know, I follow him a little bit. I'm like, okay, I respect that. But what I do respect the most about this brother is he be putting people on game, right? About, you know, especially for men who don't know how to, you know, move and shake around women and getting bread, getting money, you know, popping it off. So shout out to him. This is on his channel. He has some really dope stuff. I think at the Millionaire Morning Show, the Anton Daniels channel, that's the one I follow the most. I like his takes. He has a lot of good takes. Obvious because I'm always recording. I can't watch all of his stuff, but I'm just saying the stuff that I've seen from him, I enjoy. Now, this title got me today. I'm going to tell you guys why we're here. Because I got a text message from my father, my black father, that it's this text that's going around in the black community typically about this boycott, this economical blackout. And we're supposed to not buy anything from these corporations on February 28th, because of this DEI bullshit, right? And I saw him post this. I did not know this, so I'm not totally sure what's going on here. But this is saying that the whole blackout was created by a liberal white man or liberal white men, which the biggest confusion in the black community that I see currently is the first thing is that we're voting against ourselves because democratic policies strategically aren't going to help the black community. And this is in multiple ways, and it's all the way from, you know, abortion to migration to just a bunch of things that we're literally voting against ourselves. But because certain issues they stand up on make them seem like the party that's not racist. I try to cover that word because YouTube be trying to age restrict everything when you start getting in these deep combos. But anyways, you know, they gravitate to that. Now, to where this is a full circle moment, and this is this is deep irony. This is ironic, you guys. I'm going to let you guys in on my personal stuff before we get into this economic blackout, which it failed. It did not work. And how can it work? This is what I talk about when I say you guys are voting against yourself. How can an economic blackout work when the black community is only 12% of the population? And we were only 10% of the population in the 50s, meaning if we were moving at the rates of Hispanics, we would be closer to that 20% mark right now, black people, but we're not, right? Now, they have migration on their side where they're getting let in a lot more frequently over the border, so that has something to say. But anyways, let's just get into this. My dad is a Democrat. I love my dad to death. I will never let politics split us up. He will not let politics split us up. Sometimes we get in little arguments. I am not a Republican per se, but I definitely lean right. I think everyone on this channel knows that. My dad is a Democrat, and I don't understand it because all his views are conservative. This is why I lean to the right, because of my dad and my mom. So my dad is a hardcore Christian, goes to church every Sunday. Still, even after my mom passed of cancer, he is a hardcore, devoted Christian, always talks to me. Hey, we'll just pray to Jesus, you know, ask your Lord and Savior. Hey, remember this. He's a great man. He's a strong man, okay? Beyond being a strong Christian, I'm just going to keep it a buck for a second. My mom and dad specifically we were raised, they were always against gay marriage. Now, me being from the younger generation, I didn't think it was a big deal. I still don't. I think once the gay marriage stuff passed and we start getting into like, take it, you know, give an inch, take a mile, and now we want to let biological males in female bathrooms and biological males compete with female sports. Now I'm like, well, if that was the door that opened to this, then I get it, but I don't necessarily think it is. I don't know. Like, it's like maybe I'm still too compassionate and open-minded, to be totally like a certain way, but that's what they think. I'm just trying to preface this because my dad votes Democrat. He is a Democrat, but he literally doesn't believe in gay marriage, hardcore Christian, absolutely doesn't believe in abortion. All these things which are highlighted as like a Democratic faculty, like this is the big thing, and then with some of the migration, it does affect the black community, whether people want to acknowledge it or not. Some people are like, no, they've, brainwashed you to think that, to put you against, your own people. And I'm just like, look, man, DEI, black folks are trying to go hard for DEI. And from some of the statistics I read, DEI has literally benefited white women more than any freaking thing. And again, I don't have nothing against white women. I don't got nothing against anybody. But if you're over here fighting for something, right? And I'm going to break down DEI because it doesn't benefit black folks. Okay, the black person's plight in America was different than the woman's plight. It was different than the rainbow community's plight. It's different than the migrants' plight. The migrants actually benefit from the black plight because this whole, what is it, natural born citizenship, if you're born here, that's all because of slavery. So, like, people are really getting these things misconstrued and twisted in the black community, thinking going for DEI, which is actually catapulting. Remember all the stuff in Target, the rainbow stuff? Like, it's just funny. They just lump the black plight with the rainbow stuff. And it's just crazy. It's different. Women's suffrage is different than, the black plight. And I'm not over here to get into the victim Olympics. That's not me. I'm not that guy. Like, I know that you have to overcome and work hard and life isn't fair, period. So I'm not going to sit here and bask in all this stuff. But as I see these conversations, especially on Facebook, now I bring up my pops for this. He raised me fundamentally with all those things. So then you wonder why I lean right. I ask him, I'm like, bro, they got abortion food trucks at the DNC. What do you think about that? And he never has an answer. And this is why. Because the Democratic Party goes hard for DEI and things that are race related. And my dad authentically believes they are the party for black folks, right? Even though, what does DEI do for black folks? Not much, in my opinion, nothing at all. And also, it creates a discriminatory way of picking things. We just need the best people for the best parts or for the best positions and merit-based society. That should always be the goal. Now, I want to preface this. If you're still here with me, you're still listening, you're still on board for a second. My dad has the right to feel this way, you guys. And there's some people from the right who are going to get after me in the comments because they're not going to believe this. My father served 21 years in the Air Force as a firefighter. In his last couple of years, he had all the accolades. He merit-based. He was ready to become fire chief. Because of what seemed like a racial component from the existing fire chief, my father was never able to become fire chief. And before you get in the comments, be like, well, did he have an attitude? No. Did he know? The mother effer was a firefighter for 21 years. He was a hard worker. He's still a hard worker to this day. So before you get in there with all the stuff, because I know how the right and the left move, and it's always like, oh, but it was his fault. It was a different time back then. And don't act like there's not racial components in the military. There's less now. I can agree that there's less now. We're in a better playing field now. That's why I don't play the victim Olympics bullshit. Because right now we're in a better playing position because of people like my father and other people who came before us who gave us that right. So me to bask in the victim Olympics is insanity. Okay, I hope you're still here with me. I'm preaching right now. I've seen it. I had a long conversation because watching, the right wing speaking points, I actually was on a walk with my dad and I started kind of throwing those in there. We're like, maybe he wasn't qualified and that's why. And that wasn't the fucking case. And I actually feel like a doofus even questioning, but it was good to question because you can go too far to the right and too far to the left and get lost in the shrubbery is what I call it. So my father faced discrimination in his military career. And I didn't realize this was going to affect the trajectory of my life until now, looking back, because my father knew the military. That's what he knew. That's what he gave up his life for. He knew that getting it. So he left Harlem because he knew he was going to end up in the streets and the violence and the drugs and the blah, blah, blah. And he was like, I don't want this for my life. I'm going to change my life. I'm getting into the military to serve my country and to get a better life. So he gets in the military. He serves this country for 21 years. And I think at that point he had had enough. He wanted to stay in the military. If he would have been fire chief, he would have stayed, you guys. And that would have affected the trajectory of my life personally. I would have had more things growing up, But because of this racial component, he was demoralized at the end. And I think he's like, hey, I'm going to retire. I have some benefits. I did 21 years. I'm just going to get back into be a civilian and seek a job. Well, he had to go to college to try to get paid the proper wages. Long story short, when he got back to civilian lifestyle, he had low-paying jobs. He worked in a school. He worked on computers. He ended up working on Fort Carson on computers and stuff, and that's where he started getting paid more. But the fundamental part of my life, he wasn't making that type of money, so my mom had to go into the workforce as well. And that's where I ended up almost losing my life because, they couldn't afford to keep us in karate and a bunch of things that we used to do. And I went the street route. I was hanging out with gangbangers and I went through a very interesting process. However, I don't blame the process. This is just life, you guys. I'm fine with it. I came out better because I went through these things. That's actually why I became a rapper. So it's kind of ironic how things end up. But my father sent me this for this blackout. And I'm just like, what is this blackout for? When our community didn't even create the blackout, right? Or the black community didn't create the blackout, which is hilarious. And then it's for DEI, something that in my personal opinion, doesn't even benefit the black community. So, I understand why my dad votes the way he does, and that's why he votes the way he does, because how he was treated in the military through his process of going through the military. So I understand why people want things like DEI. But we're starting to see that it doesn't really work because it's being I can't think of the word, but it's being implemented. That was the word I was thinking about, and I got it. It's being implemented improperly and creating other disparages. So that's what I'm seeing from afar. I could be wrong. I'd love to hear from my lefties and my righties in the comments. I'm just giving you a real take and a real story from me in real time. And I'm mixed. Like I'm black and Mexican, but my Mexican side, I have like Irish in my blood. At least that's what my mom said. I ain't never done 23andMe, but I have like some Irish, some French, and some Native in my blood on my Hispanic side. So I'm, I try my hardest to see from all angles. Anyways, let's go. Let's see what he's talking about for a little bit. I kind of went crazy on this one, but essentially, the gist of this conversation came from this title.
Community and saying, hey, we want to show large corporations our economic power by boycotting on the last day of February, which just so happened to be the last day of Black History Month. And it started to pick up traction, and it started to play a game of telephone. And so what happened was it was shared amongst a bunch of different people that don't look like black culture. It was shared by a bunch of different people that don't look like us. And basically what it was for was to show that they need to make sure that they're acknowledging and also creating visibility and acknowledging the people that really support them. And again, this is a white man. I just want to keep on acknowledging that, not because I'm racist or I'm a part of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Anybody that's been following me for a decent amount of time, that that's not the case. I rock with people based off of the content of their character, and if you're just a good person, that's it. It don't really matter about all of that other type of stuff, right? And so it started to gain traction, and again, it was planned on the last day of Black History Month, and unexpectedly, because he didn't expect for this thing to blow up the way that it did, he then created a website and a group. He scrambled to create a website and a group called the People's Union, right? And that People's Union, again, doesn't necessarily acknowledge black culture. It doesn't care about diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's really just because, a bunch of people or a liberal guy then got with a bunch of his little friends and they decided that they really wanted to show big corporations that they matter and whatever, so on and so forth, right? A game of telephone was played. Eventually it made its way over to black culture, black TikTok, black Twitter, whatever it is that you want to call it. And now black people jumped on the bandwagon. And I say now because it was, it happened on the 28th of February, but they have a whole lot of other stores and different days planned or whatever, so on and so forth. My point is this. Black people, once it got to them, again, it was played a game of telephone. And instead of them researching to understand where it came from so that they can know exactly what they were getting themselves into, you seeing all of them creating all of their own versions of it, because by the time it got to them, they didn't know where it came from. And, it would behoove you to actually do research. And they decided that they wanted to jump on the bandwagon and say that it was for black people. And because it had black in the title, Black Economic Blackout, they thought that it was for them. They thought that a bunch of people had created this thing, or some black person somewhere, which, again, nobody actually did any research. I looked it up before I even started having this conversation with y'all a few days ago. They decided that they wanted to make it for them. And so it became an economic blackout. And by the time that we start hitting the streets, going outside, kicking it with people, so on and so forth, one of the things that somebody said to me, because this was the first time that I heard about it, was, and again, it was from somebody that didn't know me, and it was a friend of a friend, and it was talking, and it was at an event back in Detroit. Y'all not going shopping on Friday, right? And I'm like, I didn't know what the hell was going on. And so, of course, by the time that I got home, I had already researched it on my phone to better understand exactly what was going on. And I found the divide. I found the needle in the haystack, in which John Schwartz, you can go and look it up, had created this movement, but black people thought that it was from them, for them, by them. FUBU. Now, there's going to be some people that say, well, it doesn't matter where it started. The only thing that matters is whether or not we embrace it. People are such sheep. They are so silly and stupid and ignorant. And this is why it is important. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't be a follower, because we all follow at some point in our lives. And at some point we all are continuously following, because we need to, be whatever it is that we need to for whatever it is that we need to get. But what I'm telling you is that it's important to have understanding. Understanding. The Bible says, in everything you do, get understanding. You need to know why you're doing what you're doing. Otherwise, you doing it blindly would lead you into the slaughter. And people perish for lack of knowledge. They don't have understanding. They don't have knowledge.
All right. So he continues. I just thought this was interesting because I did not know this, right? Who created? Because I get the text from my father, and I'm like, Lord, please, Lord, take the wheel, because I hate to see my father be, overcome by what they call woke now, which, again, I know the origin where woke came from, bro. Woke came from typically black dudes or hood characters or street cats, not just black folks, but street cats who are into conspiracy theories. Like the world is controlled by banks, and I don't know, 9/11 seems a little sus, and da-da-da. That was the culture of woke. It was conspiracy theorists that didn't trust the establishment, and they'd be like, yo, stay woke in the streets. These brothers was listening to Alex Jones. So the flip on woke culture being like woke culture is like the rainbow community and this and that. It's kind of funny how that works, but that was originally what it was, because I was in that group of people who just didn't trust the establishment, and we were, following the conspiracy stuff. And we're like, hey, stay woke. It was a hip hop thing too. But anyways, here we are. And it is interesting. He brings out some great points. Again, fact check it all, because I did not know this until he posted this, but I trust him. And he does his diligence. So I should probably do mine. But for me, this just created the conversation of how fast something can spread and how immediate. But then also open up the convo of why people feel this way, like my father, right? Like why, considering all his views are conservative, but he votes Democrat. Why would that happen? And for people who wonder why, I think I explained it pretty well. And it's fine. It's fine. Me and my dad, I'm going to love my dad to, forever. And he going to love me forever. And he's proud of me, And, I just, when I get those type of text messages from like, yo, economic blackout, don't buy anything this Friday, I don't even think I responded to it because I didn't know what to say because I was like, I don't want to start this argument about how fake this is. And I love you to death, but I'm definitely going shopping on Friday, Pops. And I'm definitely living my life. And I'm not in solidarity with these people because these people are idiots, right? When you're doing a blackout on Amazon, how many black-owned businesses, man, are you shitting on? Oh, you just supposed to buy from black folks? And then it's just like, what about man, I respect the hustle, bro. There's some white MFers, there's some Mexican MFers out there that really, really had to get through the mud to get to where they're at. Or they're going through the mud and need someone to purchase something on Amazon or pick something up at the food truck. And they were like, well, it wasn't about that. It's about Walmart. But what about the black businesses that are in Walmart, man? There's black-owned companies. There's like jam companies and black hair products from black-owned companies. And you're going to black that out. That's why people they be tripping, man. And that's the way up. For a black-owned business to get picked up by Walmart is huge. And Walmart if it's a good product, they pick it up. Lord have mercy. And I'm not with the corporations like that either. Like, F the corporations. Like, if you would have said, hey, the corporations are doing this, I'm like, yo, I feel that actually. They ain't paying their taxes or this, that, or the other. I would feel that more than just like, yo, we ain't supposed to do this because we black. And that's the angle, like the text I got, that was the literature. And and when you see what he's saying, you're seeing how the literature changed, right? Like, it started with this dude on X, aka formerly known as Twitter, and then it transformed and got to the black community. Now my dad's sending me the black version of, and for me, I think I'm seeing through the fog and the mist. When I tell you all these things, like what I'm seeing with DEI, like as a black man, right? Like I'm addressing this as a black man. Like when you see DEI, you're like, who is it really representing the most? Who's getting the most from it? And I personally would vouch that the black community gets the least from DEI, which is ironic because we're the face of it, right? The face of BLM, Black Lives Matter, where you raised all this money for black folks, and none of it went back to the black community. None of it. And so, like, until you wake up to that as a black man in America, like, you're going to have issues, right? Because I think that would have been awesome. Like, so even though I didn't agree with the premise of BLM, I don't know if the people on the right could agree with this. They raised a shit ton of money. Let's say, even if you didn't agree with BLM, why it started, whatever. But let's say that money did go into the black community, created some kids clubs, some, things that actually started slowing down the violence and the this and the that within the black community. I would think that's cool because that affects everyone, right? And that's growth. And, again, it did not go there. So what are we talking about? And DEI, what's it doing for the black community? If black folks are going to get behind DEI so much, be authentic and honest. What has it really done for the black community? I'm sure it's done a little, maybe more than I'm giving it credit for. There might be a couple things it's done where it's like, oh, that's kind of cool, But at the same time, when are we going to look in the mirror and say, hey, we need to shift culture? When are we going to look in the mirror and say our culture needs a shift? Because we're not a big percentage of pilots because they don't want us to be pilots. Are we doing what's necessary to get to that point? I'm not saying we aren't. I don't know. But I do know in, statistically, I believe it is Asian and Indian families are balling out on all cultures. And it's when you see the way their culture is, they're just different. Like the family structure is tighter. They emphasize school more than entertainment. They emphasize education, they're a little more strict at times. So until we want to identify a culture and really try to make that culture shift, are we really going to be in the position to get the positions we want? I don't know. I see a lot, man. I could go on some anecdotal warfare right now because I got a brother, a homie who works at Target. He's been there forever, man. He's a good dude. And some of the new employees there act crazy. They think they're entitled to act certain ways, to do certain things. Like it just doesn't make sense. And of course, a lot of times I hear these stories and they're very stereotypical. Like you're just like, you don't want it to be that demographic. But a lot of times it ends up being that, and that's frustrating and embarrassing because obvious, all I can do is lead by example. And anyways, I thought this was a good one. I don't know. I'm going to drop this immediately today. And it's just a conversation piece. And I know some of this stuff is uncomfortable and some people don't like this conversation. So they unsubscribe, they delete me, whatever. That's fine. That's fine. But this is a trending topic and it affects me directly, man. My pops texted me, you know what I'm saying? So, hey, it is what it is. You guys let me know what I got, what I missed. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Check out Anton Daniel's channel. He's dope. And I'll holler.
City boy, city boy.